Welcome to our channel Crime Loom, the place where true crime stories come alive. Imagine knowing the exact day you will die. Imagine waking up every morning counting down the hours, wondering if the world is moving toward you or away from you. This is the story of Leanna Hart, a quiet woman from a quiet village, who saw her own death before it happened. She didn't just feel it, she dreamed it. Clearly, painfully, unforgettably. For 10 days she lived with one question. Is the future unchangeable? Or can a single choice rewrite fate? What happened on the final day shocked everyone because the woman who predicted her death did something no one expected. She fought back. The village of Maribel stood between two slow rivers that curled around it like protective arms. Most people who lived there believed life moved in circles. Seasons returned. Children grew into adults who became like their parents, and the future rarely held surprises. But there was one woman who had always stepped slightly outside that circle, not rudely or proudly, but with a calm distance that made others both trust and fear her. Her name was Leanna Hart. Leanna lived in a small house at the edge of the village fields, where tall grass swayed like restless water. She had a gentle face, quiet eyes, and a calm voice that carried more weight than most loud speeches given in the village square. She worked as an herbalist, and people often came to her with fevers, cuts, or heartbreak. She would listen, prepare herbs, give soft advice, and send them home feeling lighter. But what set her apart was not her skill with plants. It was something else, something older. Ever since childhood, Leanna had dreams that felt more like messages. When she was 10, she dreamed that her neighbor's barn would burn, and 3 days later, lightning struck it. When she was 16, she dreamed that the baker's son would fall from a tree and break his arm. That happened the next afternoon. People began to whisper that Leanna saw things before they happened. They whispered softly because no one wanted to accuse her of anything dangerous, yet no one wanted to ignore her either. Leanna never bragged about her dreams. In truth, they troubled her. She did not like feeling different. She wanted to wake in the morning like everyone else, thinking only of chores and meals. But dreams did not ask her permission. They simply arrived. One evening, when the sky was stretching into a soft red and the fields glowed as if lit from within, Leanna felt something strange settle inside her. She was watering the herbs behind her house when the watering can slipped from her hand. A sudden coldness washed through her body, making her stand still. She pressed a hand to her chest without understanding why. The air around her felt too quiet, as though all the usual sounds, the insects, the rustling grasses had stepped back to give space to something heavy and invisible. That night she dreamed, not in broken pieces like usual, but in a clear and heavy vision that sat in her mind like a stone. She saw herself walking down the river path. She saw the sky darken too quickly. She saw the shape of a woman herself, flying on the ground, with soft dirt clinging to her palms and the wind moving her hair. And she saw a date. Clear, sharp, unquestionable. 10 days from now. She woke gasping. Her hair clung to her neck with sweat. She sat on the edge of her bed for almost half an hour trying to slow her heartbeat. She had dreamed of danger before, even dreamed of death coming for others, but never for herself. Never with such precision. At sunrise, she stepped outside and watched the light spread across the fields as though the world was pretending to be ordinary. She almost wished she could pretend to. Leanna spent most of that day in silence. She prepared remedies for her patients with slow, careful hands, as though each task might be her last. She did not want to speak of her dream, but the burden weighed on her and she knew someone needed to hear it. The only person she trusted enough was Rowan Pierce, a man who had known her since childhood. Rowan lived near the village square and worked as a carpenter. He was a tall man with broad shoulders and a quiet nature that matched Leanna's. He had always treated her with calm respect, never mocking her strange dreams and never questioning her honesty. When she arrived at his door, he immediately noticed something was wrong. "You look pale," he said softly. "Come inside." She sat at his wooden table, her hands curled in her lap. Rowan waited without pushing her. He knew she spoke best when she was ready, Finally, she whispered, "I had a dream last night." He nodded slowly. "A strong one?" She met his eyes, and for the first time in her life, she felt fear not for someone else, but for herself. "I dreamed about my death," she said. Rowan's face tightened, but he did not laugh or dismiss her. Instead, he said, "Tell me." Liana described the river path, the strange darkness, the quiet body on the ground, and the date that had burned itself into her vision. Rowan listened without interrupting. When she finished, he leaned forward. "Dreams are not always final," he said gently. "You have changed outcomes before. Not this kind." This felt different. It felt certain. Rowan took a slow breath. "Then we will make it uncertain. You will not walk alone. You will stay here or at your home, and we will keep you safe. Dreams warn, but warnings can be used." Liana wished she believed him. She wished the certainty in her chest could loosen. But the vision still sat inside her, cold and unmoving. When she left Rowan's home, wordless comfort pressed into her back like a warm hand. Still, she avoided the river path entirely that afternoon. She worked in her garden, trying to distract herself with the smell of soil and the steady rhythm of pulling weeds. But even the familiar tasks could not quiet her mind. She felt as though she was walking with a shadow she could not escape. Night after night, the dream returned. Each time, the details sharpened, the shape of the clouds, the way the wind bent the reeds, the faint sound of water moving against the rocks. She woke each morning with the same heavy feeling in her chest. 10 days slowly became 9, 8, 7. Meanwhile, the village sensed something unusual in Liana, though she tried to hide her fear. Those who came to her noticed her trembling hands, the faint sadness in her voice. Some avoided her, afraid of what her silence might mean. Others watched her with worried eyes, but no one knew the truth. Only Rowan. As the days passed, he stayed close, visiting her in the mornings and walking with her in the evenings. He tried to make her laugh, tried to distract her, but she could not shake. The feeling that time was closing around her like a tightening ring. On the 3rd day before the date of her vision, the first strange sign appeared not in a dream, but in the waking world. A flock of birds moved across the sky in a sharp, unnatural pattern, circling over her house 3 times before flying toward the river path. Liana watched them with cold dread. For the first time she said aloud, "It is coming." She felt the world listening. Rowan was in his workshop when Liana came to him that afternoon. She did not knock. She stepped inside as if pulled by something stronger than manners. Sawdust floated in the air like light snow, and the smell of fresh wood filled the room. Rowan looked up from the chair he was carving and saw her face. "What happened?" he asked at once. "The birds," she said quietly. "They flew over my house and circled 3 times. Then they went to the river path." Rowan put down his tools. He had known her long enough to understand how signs worked for her. "You think it is connected to your dream?" "I do not think," she answered. "I know." He walked closer to her and spoke in a steady voice. "Then we must change what can be changed. You will not go near the river. Not now. Not on that day. Not at all." Liana wanted to believe that staying away would be enough. But deep inside, the dream still felt like a promise the world had made to itself. She pressed her lips together. "What if my death comes to me?" she whispered. "Even if I hide?" "Then I will be there," Rowan said. "I will not leave you." Liana looked at him, wondering if he understood what he was saying. She was not afraid of pain as much as she was afraid of pulling others into her fate. But Rowan's eyes were firm and kind, like strong roots in the soil. She nodded slowly. They made a plan. For the next 3 days, until the date in her vision, Liana would not walk alone. If she needed to gather herbs, Rowan or another trusted friend would go with her. On the final day, she would stay inside his house, where the walls were thick and the windows small. If death wanted her, it would have to come through him first. The second strange sign appeared the next morning. A young boy named Tomas ran to Liana's house with tears in his eyes and dirt on his knees. "Miss Liana," he cried, "my mother fell." She slipped near the river path. She said the ground moved under her feet like something pushed her. Liana's heart jumped. She knelt and put a hand on Tomas's shoulder. Is she hurt? She hurt her ankle, he sniffed. But she is home now. She says she will be all right. She said to tell you she fell where the reeds bend low. Liana knew that place. It was the exact spot from her dream. After Tomas left, she went to tell Rowan. It is not just in my mind, she said. The place in my dream has already tried to claim someone. It missed her. It is waiting for me. Rowan listened, his jaw tightening. Then we will not let it have you. Liana wanted to argue that they were standing against something bigger than them both. But she also knew that fear could not help her. If these were her last days, she did not want to spend them only trembling. The village, however, began to sense that something serious was happening. Tomas had repeated his story to his friends. Soon people were whispering about the river path, the strange fall, and the woman who had looked troubled for days. No one said Liana's name out loud in the square, but their glances drifted toward the fields where she worked. Some believed she was in danger. Others believed she was the source of it. On the day before the date in her vision, the sky turned a dull gray, with clouds hanging low and thick. Liana woke before sunrise and sat by her window, watching the world slowly appear. Every movement felt important. She studied the way light touched the rooftops, the way smoke curled from chimneys, the way a stray dog trotted along the path. She thought about her life. She remembered being a small child sitting by her grandmother's knees, hearing stories about people who could see ahead. Her grandmother had always ended those tales the same way. Seeing the future is no gift unless you can change it. Liana had often repeated those words when her dreams helped her save someone. Now she did not know if she could still believe them. Rowan arrived early, carrying a basket of bread and apples. You will eat, he insisted softly. You need your strength. She took the food for his sake more than her own. They sat together in her small kitchen. The room felt too quiet. The ticking of the little clock on the shelf seemed loud as footsteps. Do you ever wish you did not know things before they happened? Rowan asked. Every day, she answered without hesitation. But I also know that my dreams have saved people. I cannot wish those lives away, even if I wish the dreams would stop. He nodded slowly. Then maybe this is like the other times. A warning, not a sentence. Maybe we are already changing it just by taking it seriously. If that is so, she said, then promise me something. If I live past tomorrow, you will not let me hide from the world. Do not let me turn into someone who is always waiting for the next terrible dream. Make me plant more herbs. Make me walk in the square. Make me laugh. A small smile touched Rowan's mouth. That is an easy promise to make. The third and final sign came at midday. A strong wind rose from nowhere, bending the trees and making shutters bang against windows. The villagers hurried to tie down anything that could blow away. Liana and Rowan stood at her door, watching dust swirl through the air. Then, in the middle of the storm, a thin, sharp crack rang out. The big willow tree near the river path, the tree that had stood for as long as anyone could remember, split nearly in half. Its upper branches crashed down toward the ground. Later, someone would say that the trunk had finally grown too hollow, too old to stand. But Liana saw something more. In her dream, that willow had been whole, its branches hanging low over her still body. Now it was broken. The scene in her head and the scene in the world no longer matched. Her breath caught. Rowan, she whispered, something has changed. He turned to her. Broken trees are better than broken people, he said. Maybe this is the world's way of saying the path is not fixed. For the first time since the dream began, a tiny seed of hope took root inside her. That night, she did not sleep well. She drifted in and out of uneasy dreams, but none were as sharp as the first vision. It was as if the world were rearranging itself behind a curtain she could not fully lift. When she finally awoke, the sky outside her window was pale blue. The day of her predicted death had begun. Rowan arrived as the sun rose. He had packed a small bag with simple things: water, bread, a blanket. I know we planned for you to stay at my house, he said, but I think we should decide together, here and now, how to face this day. Hiding and shaking in a corner does not feel right. but walking straight to the river seems foolish. What do you suggest? Liana asked quietly. We stay together, he replied. We move, but carefully. We do not go near the river path. We listen. If anything feels wrong, we stop. She looked at him, studying his face, as if she might not see it again. And if something comes for me anyway? She asked. Then I will stand between you and it, he said simply. The words warmed her and frightened her at the same time. She nodded. They left her house together and walked toward the village square. People watched them with wide eyes. Some made signs of protection over their hearts. Some looked away as if afraid that meeting her gaze would invite her fate into their own lives. The hours moved slowly. Morning stretched into afternoon. Liana's heart beat hard in her chest, but nothing happened. No strange wind. No sudden darkness. No invisible hand reaching out to pull her to the ground. She dared to believe just a little that Rowan might be right. That the broken willow and their careful choices had bent the future in a new direction. But as the sun began to sink toward the line of trees in the distance, a cool breath of wind slid through the village. It carried the smell of water and wet earth. Liana felt the hair on her arms rise. The river, she whispered. Rowan heard it too. He looked toward the path that led out of the village and down to the water. Though they were not close enough to see the river itself, they could hear it now, louder than usual, as if the water were calling. Liana's legs trembled. This was the moment she had seen in her dream, wrapped now in new shapes and choices. For a long second, she stood frozen, caught between fear and the fragile hope that they had already changed enough. Then someone screamed from the direction of the river. The scream sliced through the evening air like a blade. Liana and Rowan turned toward the river path at the same time. For a moment, neither of them moved. The scream came again high, frightened, echoing against the trees. It did not call a name. It was simply fear, raw and sharp. Rowan grabbed Liana's hand. Stay behind me. But she shook her head. Someone needs help. I cannot stay away if someone is in danger because of me. Liana, if I run from this, I will run from everything for the rest of my life, she said softly. And I do not want my last choice to be fear. Her voice was calm, but steady. Rowan saw that nothing he said would hold her back. He nodded once tightly, and together they ran toward the sound. The sun was sinking fast, stretching long shadows across the ground. The wind whispered through the reeds. With every step closer to the river path, Liana felt her heart thundering. This was the place she had avoided for days. The place in her dream. She felt the familiar coldness spreading through her chest. She felt the world narrowing around her. When they reached the bend where the willow tree had split, they saw a young woman kneeling beside a child. The boy was trapped under a fallen branch, one of the pieces of the broken willow, thrown outward by the storm the day before. The woman was trying to lift it, but it was too heavy. My son, she cried when she saw Rowan and Liana. Please help me. Rowan rushed to the branch and strained to lift it. The wood was thick and heavy. Liana knelt beside the boy. He was conscious but frightened, his leg twisted painfully under the branch. It will be all right, Liana whispered. We will get you out. The ground here was soft, just like in her dream. The reeds bent low, brushing her shoulders. The river murmured close by. Every detail echoed the vision she had seen, except that she was not alone, and she was not the one lying still on the ground. Not yet. Rowan gritted his teeth and pushed harder. Liana helped me lift. They tried together, but the branch barely moved. Try again, she said. He only needs a few inches. Rowan nodded and braced himself. They pushed. This time, the branch shifted enough for Liana to pull the boy's leg free. The child screamed in pain, but he was alive. Liana held him gently while Rowan dragged the branch aside. The mother sobbed with relief and gathered her son into her arms. Thank you, she cried. Thank you both. Rowan knelt beside them. Take him to the healer's house. His leg is injured, but he will live. The woman nodded and slowly carried her son back toward the village. As their figures disappeared, silence settled again. The river moved softly. The sky darkened. The place felt suddenly uncomfortably familiar, as though it was waiting for something. For her, Liana stood slowly. Rowan rose beside her. His face was tense. "We should go," he said. Now, but Liana did not move. She stared at the ground, remembering the position of her dream self. The way the body had fallen, the way the dirt had stuck to her hands. She touched her palm to the soft earth. "Rowan," she whispered, "what if helping that child was why I came here? What if this was the moment my dream showed me not my death, but my choice?" Rowan reached for her hand. "Then we leave. You made your choice. You changed something. We walk away now." She looked into his eyes and nodded. They turned to leave the river path. But as they stepped onto the narrow walkway, the final part of the dream arrived not as a shadow or a whisper, but as a sudden, terrible truth. The ground gave way. Not all at once, but in a quick sliding motion, as if the earth had finally grown tired of holding itself together. The rain from the storm had soaked the soil. The weight of the broken willow had cracked the embankment. And now, with the pressure of two adults stepping onto it, the weakened edge of the path collapsed. Rowan reacted instantly. He lunged toward Liana, grabbing her arm and pulling her back. But the ground beneath him crumbled faster than he could move. Liana felt the pull of gravity yank him downward. She threw herself forward, grabbing his coat with both hands. For a moment they hung between safety and disaster, the river rushing beneath. Rowan's feet slid toward the drop. "Liana, let go," he shouted. "You'll fall too." "No," she cried. Her fingers dug into the fabric. He slipped another inch. The soil continued to break. She felt her knees skidding on the loose dirt. One wrong movement, and they would both go over the edge. She realized then that this was the moment from her dream. Two hands pressed to the earth. The cold wind, the failing ground. But she also realized something else. In the dream, she had been alone. In the dream, no one had been in danger but her. But now, Rowan was the one hanging over the drop. This was the choice. "Rowan," she whispered, tears rising in her eyes. "If I let go, you will die. And if you don't," he said, "we both will." She shook her head fiercely. "No, I will not let the dream choose for me." She shifted her weight, pressing one knee into the stable part of the path and bracing the other against a thick root sticking out from the embankment. With all her strength, she pulled. Rowan's hands found the edge. He grabbed it, struggled, and with her help, dragged himself out of danger. They collapsed together on solid ground. Breathing hard, the broken earth beside them hung open like a wound. Rowan sat up slowly. "Liana, you saved me." She leaned back on her elbows, shaking. I think I saved myself too." They sat there in silence as the sky deepened into night. The river no longer hissed like a warning. The air felt lighter. The heaviness that had sat in Liana's chest for 10 long days faded like mist. Rowan turned to her. "Your dream was real, but the future wasn't fixed. It showed me where I could fall," she said softly, "but not where I had to." He touched her hand gently. "Then you have changed your fate." Liana looked out at the broken path and the darkening river. She felt tired, but alive in a way she had not felt in years. "Yes," she whispered. "I have." They walked back to the village together, step by careful step. Behind them, the river path lay shattered and silent, holding only the memory of what almost happened and the promise of what did not. Liana Hart, the woman who predicted her death, had rewritten her own story, and the village would remember her not as the woman who saw her fate, but as the woman who faced it and lived. And so, Liana Hart, the woman who predicted her own death, walked away from the fate she once believed was unbreakable. Not because the world spared her, but because she chose not to surrender. Her dream warned her of danger, but it did not decide her ending. Her courage did, in the end. Liana taught her village and all of USONs something powerful. The future is not a straight road. It bends with every choice we make, every step we take, every moment we refuse to give up. Some people wait for destiny to come, but Liana, She met destiny on the river path, looked it in the eye, and walked away alive. Remember her story? Because sometimes the bravest way to face the future is to believe you can change it. For watching more amazing videos like this, subscribe our channel Crime Loom.